Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America online, thisweekinamerica.us. It's your guide through the dog-eat-dog world of business, the much-talked-about new book, Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, Your GPS in an Era of Hyperchange, a motivational guide to give business leaders an internal compass as they navigate the world of accelerating change, the qualities needed in adapting to the rapidly changing business world. Jeff Piersall is co-author along with Eric Wright. Jeff is a visionary leader, entrepreneur, startup coach, innovative trailblazer, an author, speaker. He's impacted thousands of people throughout his career. The founder and CEO of SCB Marketing, which includes 4 business journals, numerous business specialty publications, a former award-winning high school and college basketball coach. Jeff Piersall, co-author of Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, Your GPS in an Era of Hyperchange, with us on This Week in America. Jeff, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Rick, just as I am myself, and thank you very much for having me here.
It is a pleasure. I love the book, Don't Bark at Parked Cars. Let's go back to that summer of 1969 when you had your first experience with barking dogs. You're 10 years old. Talk about that, because that was a lesson that really stayed with you through life and sort of set up the premise for Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars.
Yeah, it really did, Rick. And it's one of those things, when you experience certain situations in life, as I did in growing a business, it reminded me of this event. And that kind of is what gave birth to where we're going now, because, any time that you're focused on a target and you're driving toward that target, just as I was that day, riding my bike, playing cops and robbers around town. And I took the pathway to go down that road because I knew that Dalmatian was there, but I was going to teach the Dalmatian a lesson that day. And instead I got taught the lesson. And that's the same in business. You're always going to have critics. And if you think you're going to get into the gutter with those critics and you're going to get into those distractions, you're just taking your eye off the target, and it's going to keep you from your intended destination. And you've got to have a guiding pathway to be able to manage all of those obstacles. And that's really what the book does, is it gives you that pathway to handle all of that you're going to experience in growing a business or in even your personal life.
It's a very relatable book. You use that relationship between humans and dogs as a metaphor throughout the book. So it brings everything into focus. It's all something that we can relate to. You do an excellent job. And your chapters have interesting titles like Running Without a Leash and The Power of the Pack. So you're able to, something we're all familiar with, incorporate that. And it sticks in your mind as you're reading the book and you're following through with the principles you talk about.
Well, I appreciate that, and I really appreciate you recognizing that, because I think that's been the biggest cornerstone or uniqueness of both Eric and I, is our authenticity in how we relate with our audiences, and I think it came out in the book very well. And we've had everything from single stay-at-home moms to high-end CEO executives who have appreciated the context to be able to help them in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So it's been a very rewarding experience. It's taken a while to get it out, as it always does for the first one, but it's been worth it, very much so.
The book is called Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars. Jeff Piersall, one of the authors of the book, co-authored. The book is available, of course, at Amazon. Information at Jeff's website, Jeff Piersall, Piersall.com. Also the website, dogsdon'tbark.com. And, of course, you can link on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. It's interesting, you talk about before business leaders, ability and talent were really the main focus. Now the leaders need less tangible qualities. Talk about that and how important that is and how that's really dramatically changed over the years.
Yeah, I think it really is looking at, what is happening on the trend line for our next 10 years. And over the next 10 years, our workforce is going to go from an average age of 53 to 33. You're going to have technology. We've had about a 10% of the change of technology. You still have 90% change still to come. The workforce and the environment of how we conduct business is going to dramatically change over this next 10 years. But the basic fundamental principles that apply to building that business with those people. Because all of us, no matter what, are going to remain in the people business. I don't care how much technology advances, but we've got to sustain and pass on that wisdom that has been gained over the years and years. Because really, if we don't, if you're looking at a workforce that goes from 53 to 33, you've got a wisdom gap. And that wisdom gap is going to cause us to repeat a lot of the same mistakes if we don't pass that down. And that's really at the core essence of the book. Is it's a wisdom transfer of knowledge that's been gained over years and years and years of experience.
And you talk about some of the qualities that we need to have to be successful with the current climate. And you talk about, you mentioned this before in talking about how we're going through a broad range. We're going from the millennials, baby boomers, that type of thing. You talk about how to recognize what motivates staff. And you see so often you motivate everybody the same way. And you talk about you really have to do it differently. You talk about breaking that down. You got millennials, Gen Xers now, and you've got baby boomers. And basically all of us are motivated in a different way.
Yeah, it's really true, Rick. And I would liken it to the fact of my 3 children that are 30 to 24. And if I speak to them in the exact same manner, one, it will register with one and the other 2 it won't, because all 3 are so uniquely different. And as a leadership style, we have to learn not to communicate in our manner, but we've got to communicate to our people in the manner in which they're going to receive it. And ultimately, when we talk about best communication and best motivation, that is at the core of it. How can I communicate to you in a manner that you're going to receive the information? And most of the time in the past, what we've seen is a methodology that says, you work for me, therefore you change and hear me and understand what I've got to say, because guess what? I'm boss. And
Yes.
that just doesn't work anymore. And nor should it. I mean, we went through the phase with it and it was the right time and place. But as we go through these next decades, it's not going to continue to work at all. And you're already seeing it happen already.
You talk about building trust, how important that is, that foundation of trust.
Yeah.
Talk about that. And you just touched on it there briefly, but everybody's motivated in a different way. You need to change, adapt as you lead people over the years. Talk about that foundation of trust, because so often it's like, this is the way it's going to be, so you'll trust me and go forward.
Right.
Talk about how it's important to lay that foundation out there.
You know, Rick, it is substantially, and there's several different pieces written on trust today. I kind of liken it to the 10x factor. We talk about growing by 10x.
Yes.
and all of this, but business gets easy when my people trust me. If my vendors trust me, my clients trust me, my employees trust me, then everything gets simpler, because I don't have to spend all that time explaining. And a lot of it goes back to my coaching days. You know, when you're a basketball coach and you're in a huddle and you've got 30 seconds to be able to make a decision and make the call that you're going to make. If your players aren't emphatically with you from a trust level, you can forget about the execution of whatever it is that you're talking about. If they trust you, even the worst decision or what may look like a bad decision, because you're doing something completely contradictory to the mainstream thought process, they're going to still go execute it because they trust you. And, you know, that's the role of the leadership, is that every now and then you got to make decisions, but you don't have time to explain those decisions. You've got to have people that are acting on those decisions because they trust you. And your clients and your vendors will all be much, much easier when you have a base of trust. And so, you know, as we say, we always are investing into the character of our people, because that has more foundational return on investment than any other process that we can find. And that's just taking an interest. It really is.
Jeff Piersall, our guest on This Week in America, co-author of the book Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, Your GPS in an Era of Hyper Change. Book's available at Jeff's website, jeffpearsall.com. Also at the website dogsdon'tbark.com and our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You can link on directly. Clarify the vision is something you talk about as being very important. And again, probably back to your coaching days of clarifying what it is we're playing for as a unit out there. Where do you see this ending? And you've got a great story with Walt Disney there that I think's put into focus for everybody. And the importance of a vision. It really takes the place of a lot of words, a lot of activity. That vision is very important. Talk about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it's a basic core universal principle in which, the people will perish without vision. And Walt Disney did a wonderful thing when he built Walt Disney World. He built the Cinderella Palace first, and then everything else went up around that vision. And, if your people don't know what your vision is, all you have to do is watch an organization and it will become more and more dysfunctional. And look, all the organizations go through this because you'll go out, you'll get a vision, and then as the entrepreneur continues to lead and grow, that vision's going to change. And it's very important. And my wife really talks about this in relationship to me. I'm living 5 years out down the road, and every now and then you got to stop and come back to where everybody else is. Yes. And make sure you're communicating where you're going to be in 5 years, or everybody's just kind of lost. And it's unfair to them. And again, it kind of goes back to that thing we talked about in building the trust. You're recognizing that, you're communicating it, and you're showing and leading the way. And it really does help in every area.
You talk in the book, Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, about summoning courage, how important that is, because we're going to have doubters. We're going to have the dog barking at us as we're going through the neighborhood. How important is that to have that courage and to follow through with that?
Well, at the end of the day, courage is the sum of all virtues. You can have the virtue of trust. You can have the virtue of leadership. You can have the virtue of vision. You can have all of these different virtues, but you could still be sitting on the couch and you could have all of those virtues. Until you're willing to actually step out and get into the game and participate at a very, very high level aggressively, it just doesn't matter. And, it's one of the things coming from the coaching world. I used to run and was president of our local Little League for about 7 years. And one of the first things that happened in my first year, they came up to me and they said, "We need you to sign this $700 check." And I was like, "Why would I be signing?" And they said, "Well, this is for all of the trophies for everybody." I said, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "Well, everybody gets a trophy for being in the league." And I was like, "Guys, this is fundamentally incorrect. You don't reward participation. You reward excellence. And we learn competition in a healthy manner, because the reality is that when you're in the game of life, you're competing every day. And you're competing against yourself and your mindset, which is the number one greatest challenge you have on a daily basis. And you're competing against your natural competition, which is the simplest thing to do. And then you're competing in the world of working with your employees, your vendors, your clients. But the whole game is a world of life of competition. And, you have to have courage to get up every day and to go face that and to always be in a spirit of positive, because in the course of a day, you are going to get more negativity than you get positive, but you got to hang on to that positive because it's what's going to bring you to your destiny.
Jeff Piersall, our guest on the program, rapidly running out of time. An excellent new book called Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars. He co-authored with Wright. I'll close with this because this is so interesting to try to find this right balance between technology that's out there and the core values, the core business beliefs that we have. Right. Even as technology has opened new awareness of connectivity like never before, you talk about business still rely on the values that have stood the test of time. How do we balance that? Sometimes we rely too much on technology, and how to keep everything in perspective.
I think it's a great question, and I like to use the foundation from Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan. And that is, you've got to take some free days. Particularly in entrepreneurship and coming out of the coaching world, I was just driven by the fact that I'm going to outwork everybody. Well, outworking everybody isn't working smart. And one of the best ways that you keep that balance is making sure you have what we call free days. And now I try to challenge myself to get to 125 days a year in which I just totally unplug. And out of that unplugging, you actually get re-energized, you get better creativity and better vision. You can see things in a much better way. And when you do that, you'll be amazed. It's very interesting if you leave that phone somewhere else and don't pick it up for a day, how of a refreshing and how much it reminds you of how you used to live. In fact, for our Christmases, when the family comes, we have 19 kids that are in the family amongst all the brothers and whatnot. And we have everybody put their phone in a basket when they show up at the door. And it is an interesting day because it forces everybody into personal communication, and it's extremely healthy. And it's very beneficial for all of us.
Wow, you have to make eye contact? Do people still remember how to do that? Like look somebody in the face and speak directly to them? I got a minute or so left, and it's interesting. You talk about unplugging. And I've tried that so many times, and you talk to people that have tried that. How long did it take you to successfully unplug? It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to unplug. Your mind, I think, probably goes about 1,000 miles an hour. When were you able to actually slow it down, unplug, and realize the surroundings you're in and enjoy the surroundings?
Rick, I tell you, it's still a work in progress, and I think we all are. I've been involved with Dan now for a little over 2 years. And it's still a process to get there. My goal is to get to 125. He wants us to be at 150 something. I still struggle to get 20 real unplugged days in. But, your activities like outdoor fishing and hunting and things of that nature are very beneficial and helpful for me because, I can go and participate in those activities. And I find for me personally, if I get about 4 to 5 hours, it's extraordinarily refreshing. I haven't really been able to get to the place where just in the normal course of a week that I can just unplug it all and get away for 24 hours. That still is very much a challenge. I know it's needed, but like I said, we're all a work in progress, and we need to know what the goals are to get to, and then we continue to work toward them. And I would encourage everybody to understand, it's not about achieving 100%. Set those goals, set the understanding. And gosh, if you get to 80%, you have been hugely successful.
And your life will change. And we'll check back with you from time to time to see how you're doing and getting to that goal. Jeff Piersall, our guest on the program. That's Piersall, the website jeffpiersall.com. Also the website dogsdon'tbark.com. Talking about the new book, Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, Your GPS in an Era of Hyper Change, written by Jeff, a visionary leader, speaker, innovative trailblazer, along with Eric Wright. Jeff, the time has gone by way too quickly. Hopefully we can do this again. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
And Rick, thank you for doing what you do to help spread the word. We really do appreciate it, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much. It's an excellent book, Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, Your GPS in an Era of Hyper Change. You can link on directly to Jeff's website and get information on the book by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back after these messages.